Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media this morning. Well, you don't know if it's morning. It could be evening. It could be tomorrow, or it could be next year. But today we're going to look at the tweets of March 28th, 2019.
It's a new day, and the MAGA, now the CAGA party, what I like to call the Triumph Party, the party of Trump, is basically now going fully on the offensive. No longer the defensive and using Taekwondo and Tai Chi and Qigong to take the fire they were spitting at him. Basically, he's the phoenix. They tried to burn him alive. He enjoyed the flames. And in the conflagration, the people trying to burn him alive are now on fire.
Well, let's get started. First tweet. We'll be heading to Grand Rapids, Michigan tonight for a big rally. We'll be talking about the many exciting things that are happening to our country, but also the car companies and others that are pouring back into Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North and South Carolina, and all over.
It's good to remember that Trump is using economics as his number one tool. Okay? And if you understand that, then you look closely and you see that, many of the criminals involved in all of this, what now Devin Nunes, Devin Nunes for president in 2024. Yes.
But I still say Jim Jordan for VP.
Yes, and Jim Jordan for VP. And by the way, Trump just came out with a 9-minute, with praise of Nunes, saying he's going to be known as a great hero in terms of U.S. history. And basically, he's setting him up because he's one of the only honest people in Congress. And what he's done was absolutely the work of a hero. Now, why is he coming to Michigan? Because Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio are questioned because of, first off, the vote cheat. The vote cheat in all three of those states. Remember, those are three of the states that were looked at by Jill Stein and, what was her name? Hildebeest Clinton for a recount. And when they got to Detroit, they found that, twice as many people voted as live in Detroit, and that includes children. So they stopped the recount, right? The collusion inside of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states is what he has to fight. He's winning on the battlefield of manufacturing because he knows that economics is his greatest tool. For instance, they said that the Chinese battle for the tariffs would be bad. No, we just found out that he has made 15% so far off of what would have been our deficit, our trade loss with China. That is enough money to build the wall twice over, folks. We seem to forget that he saved $5 trillion on the climate accord. Why can't he use some of that money? So he's a genius. He already has all the money he wants to build the wall, and he had it all along. But remember, he's playing these people. He's absolutely playing them like a fiddle.
Well, he has to, because he has to wake the American people up from their brainwashing from the fake news media. And, you just can't all of a sudden one day do it. You have to get people on your side.
The Muller report, thank you very much, Mr. Muller, won Donald Trump the 2020 election because Muller wouldn't back off when we told him to if he wanted to save his own skin. Now they're going to go after him, all of his corrupt lawyers that were part of his team, all the corrupt people at FBI, the conspiracy, it's all out. Devin Nunes is putting in a recommendation for prosecution to the Department of Justice, and I just heard him say he's basically probably got dozens of people in this recommending prosecution on all of them. Are you kidding? No.
We have almost hundreds of people that will need to go through that process.
Well, Betsy, what you and your team did with the wanted posters tells Trump exactly who to go after, practically in the order to go after them. So what we see here is that Trump is back on the campaign trail, but with a fervor as the phoenix rising from the ashes. And basically, he has won. There's no way he can't win. I mean, Pedophile Joe is their number one person. All we have to do is run the Pedophile Joe films, and those are just the ones we have without even looking. If we run all the pedophile films, there's no woman or girl ever came near Pedophile Joe Biden who he did not molest right there on the film. Right there in front of everyone. And remember, his son is the same way. Hunter goes after every woman there is, including his brother's wife. And that destroyed both marriages.
Let's get out of that.
Okay, so Trump is here in Michigan today. because he's winning for all the MAGA candidates for 2020. And if you're not MAGA, you're not going to win. If you're a rhino, just don't even win. Don't even run. And if you're a Democrat, you should be too embarrassed to actually come out in public.
No. The rhinos and the Democrats will continue to win because they still have those election boxes that are still rigged. And I haven't seen any news yet that they're going after this Optech software that's inside these rigged election boxes. When is that going to happen?
I say you're absolutely right, but I also say he won with the landslide last time. It will be a double landslide this time. It doesn't even matter.
Okay. All right.
Fractional voting through those fake machines, and now he's watching. Now, there was 17 Democrats, demon rats, who won by stuffing the ballot boxes after the vote was over, and we saw that. That's going to be used against them now that he is no longer underneath the pressure of Mueller. Remember, no one and nothing could be prosecuted in Washington District of Crime unless Mueller said yes for the last, since 22 months. Period.
His job was to hold up the process.
Yes.
And hopefully they would get enough of their people back in office so that this would just be washed away. Let's go on to the next tweet. The fake news media is going crazy. They are suffering a major breakdown, have zero credibility or respect, and must be thinking about going legit. I have learned to live with fake news, which has never been more corrupt than it is now. Someday, I will tell you the secret. You mean he has a secret?
There's a big secret.
Well, but he's vetted. Everyone in the world vetted him. How could he have a secret and the CIA and the FBI not know about it?
Well, what he's talking about here is very powerful, and we're going to tell you what the secret is. Now, the reason I'm going to tell you what the secret is because he says he's going to tell them someday. Someday, I will tell you the secret. First off, the secret is he's never used his intelligence community for intelligence, because it was all lies. Second secret is what we told everyone, and he, of course, follows us, and of course, he knows this. He didn't know it before, and it's a secret because it was the super secret. It was the ultimate secret for what he's talking about here. Let's just go back for a minute and frame this. He says that the news has, mainstream media, zero credibility. True, they lost 50% of their viewership after the Mueller report was delivered. And as we say, the only reason people watch those shows is because there's nothing else to watch. Well, over the year period, CNN lost 29% of the people watching them. So even while Mueller was attacking Trump, they lost 30%, practically a third of their watchers. Well, guess what? They're down. They've lost 50% of their current. And by the time that the next 2 years are over, after the 2020 election and after Trump is reelected and the MAGA candidates are reelected, there's going to be so much crying, and it's going to be exactly what Trump said. The mainstream media is going to die, exactly as we saw with magazines, newspapers, and particularly the ones that lie. And because why? Trump knows exactly where he gets his intel. Remember when he became president, he says, I don't need the entire 17 members of the intelligence community because they all were basically part and parcel of this conspiracy, and they're all It's fake news. It's fake intel.
No, it's the way the British keep control over America. They totally run these units, and they keep a lid on it. That's what's happening.
Yes, and if you look at the mainstream media right now, they have, of course, Trump derangement syndrome. They are completely drunk on the hate for Trump, and they're trying with their small brains to come up with something to say. But you'll notice that what they did is they went back and they found every single lie that they could that wasn't mentioned in the Mueller report, and they say that's their list of things they're going after, their new investigations. That's all false. Mueller investigated all of that. Nothing will ever be found. But we know that because this is just like watching Obama not be able to form the words in his mouth and say radical Islamic terrorism. Why? Because he was a radical Islamic terrorist. And the White House was the home of Al-Qaeda. It was the home of terrorism. He was bombing 7 countries for no reason, killing 2 million people and putting 60 million people into refugee status, which of course feeds Rome, feeds the Vatican, feeds the UN, and feeds the places that hold them. So, in other words, we were giving until Trump came huge amounts of money to the Vatican, to the UN, and to Turkey, and to Jordan, and other places that hold them. This was insane. That as he could not say, Obama could not say the truth, because if he said the truth, he would be calling himself out. It's like if he had used his true name, Barry Soetoro. He couldn't have said it. Well, why do you think Rachel Madcow could not even form the words in her mouth which were the truth? Because she has never formed a word in her mouth that was her own. She's reading off of the prompter. And the prompter, unless the mainstream media specifically says this report is from the Associated Press or Thomson Reuters or our own staff, then absolutely 100% every word they say did not come from the news agency that they are speaking from. It came from a prompter that was written basically by Chinese agents who write what the prompter says for all of mainstream media, and that group is called AVID, ISIS Management, and it is the major controllers of it. 15% of it is owned by Michael Bloom and Dianne Weinstein. And
Dianne Feinstein.
And she is, of course, see, I always think of her as she's like a Chinese
She's like a female version of Harvey Weinstein. That's what you're thinking. Before you go on, though, I want to tell you that these agencies aren't working with Trump. I mean, you look at the FBI. The FBI had major treason and crime going on in their D.C. office, and the rank and file could not find the crimes going on in their own joint. Really, that's really bad. The whole thing needs to be abolished when you can't find crime in the office right next to you. Go to the water cooler and find the crimes, but they can't because they're not there to find crimes in the United States. They are there to protect Democrat crimes. And let me finish. Then you look at the CIA. Well, of course, the CIA Gina Haspel has given Trump a full report on the British espionage that went down in this attempted coup d'etat. And Gina Haspel will know because she was in the London office when all this stuff that George Papadopoulos is talking about, I know you're going to go there, she was there. Now, either she is an incompetent bimbo working the London office, head of the CIA over there, who got transferred over here by some fluke, or she's one of them. So you tell me what kind of intelligence that can come out of Brennan, Clapper, Christopher Wray, Comey. No, they're there to take us down.
And at this moment, Trump still doesn't trust any of them. Until their leaders in the SES, the senior executive service members who lead all of these agencies, until some of them go to jail, he can't trust any of those agencies. He never has. And we pointed out that he doesn't use Kroll and he doesn't use... I
know he's listening to Dan Bongino, right?
He doesn't use Eric Prince and he doesn't use Booz Hamilton. He uses none of those. He uses his own sources, and they were not... Some of his sources were people like Michael Cohen. Because why? Michael Cohen could tell you what the rats on the street of Detroit were doing. He used people like Manafort because Manafort was the Republican opposition political group that basically had the same kind of power that Podesta had. He used Cambridge Analytica because their mother company had an $86 million contract to basically keep the mainstream media fed this nonsense through Avid and ISIS Management, but also through the Global Engagement Center. So they took their cues from, I would suggest, the U.S. Digital Service, and which then fed to Avid and ISIS Management. So it was basically the news was being written by the Obama weaponized White House, Valerie Jarrett and her buddies, Susan Rice, and all the people that were part of the intelligence community and the White House support staff. They were all corrupt. They're all part of this conspiracy. If you were a major head of one of these groups, you knew about it. Why? We told you before the special counsel was ever appointed, when we saw Comey lying, we told you at that point that there was, no doubt, a counterintelligence operation going on by someone in the CIA who then would have gone and started working for the FBI, National Intelligence Division. And that's exactly what happened. Peter Strzok. We didn't know his name, and we told you it would be a lieutenant, and that lieutenant would be the fall guy.
And it would be somebody who had feet on the CIA porch and the FBI porch.
And Peter Strzok is all of that. He ran the whole thing with national security letters. And that has yet to be found out. And what Devin Nunes is saying is the whole Mueller report is garbage because they didn't look at the perpetrators. They didn't look at the people. They need to look at the people doing the investigation because they're actually the criminals. They didn't look at Hillary or Podesta. They didn't look at Christopher Steele. They didn't ask any questions. Is Christopher Steele a Russian agent? Well, he was working with Russians. Therefore, he was meddling in the election. Period. Done. Doesn't matter that he was an asset of the FBI and the CIA before. That does not matter. You can turn from one second to the next. You cannot say Christopher Steele had to be believed because we used him in the past. That's when he was in the MI6. He now has his own opposition research group, basically a propaganda group called Orbis Business International. We can't believe them. And we also know that he was being handled by Stephen Halper. He was being handled by Alison Saunders, and she was being handled by Arvinder Sambai. This is now coming out with George Papadopoulos' book and the things that he's telling the press as well as in his own testimony. So what we're saying is Trump's secret is very clear. He has intel from people who know what they're talking about. That would be us. That would be the Americans for Innovation and anyone else who has been revealing the very things that Trump is talking about. Who else has revealed anything about these things for these last 2 years about Avid and ISIS management and why the mainstream media all at the same time are saying the exact same thing? This is the secret that he's going to use to take down the mainstream media because that is a monopoly. It is racketeering. It is lying. It's a propaganda. It's actually against national security. It was an attack on our nation. It was treasonous because remember, 12 agencies, news agencies, had already been again and again, and first off, they were paid by Fusion GPS, okay, Democrat opposition money through Perkins Coie, which Podesta and Hillary claimed they didn't do, and now they claim they did do. They paid Fusion to pay the news to put forth the false story of Christopher Steele, which he met with them repeatedly with Glenn Simpson and with representatives of the FBI, and it was never supposed to be revealed because, as Devin Nunes just said with Maria Bartoloma in what I just saw on the news, he just said that all along, all the people that in the Gang of Eight, they knew this was going on. In other words, they were completely complicit with it. So Trump doesn't need the intelligence community because they're not intelligent. He chewed them out and said they need to go back to school. He simply uses the sources that are accurate that can tell him things he didn't know. Nowhere will you find any news agency besides us and our friends talking about Avid and ISIS management. Arvinder Sambai, whose site was just taken down, by the way, because she has been revealed as basically the handler of Comey. She was the news.
No, it's more than that. She's being revealed as the link right into the Privy Council and the Queen, because you see, taking out Trump was the Queen's deal, and she had her Privy Council working on it.
Yeah. Nunes is now calling it Russiagate. What does he call it? Russiagate, not scandal.
We need to call it Windsorgate.
That's the point. This is British Gate.
Yes,
this is the Queen's Privy Council attacking America.
And if we can take down the Privy Council, then that helps all of our friends over in Britain, these patriots that are trying to get their country back from this evil monarch.
And remember that the SES is basically the evil monarch. Once the White House turns rogue and they realize the power they have through the CIA to be able to create wars and move money, do anything they want, all illegally, all under the auspices, as Nunes said, of a national security umbrella. No, this wasn't a national security issue. This was a treasonous attack by Brits and Americans. The SES basically thinks that they are a monarchy, serving whoever the rogue CIA leader is. It was George Herbert Walker Bush, who was, of course, a pedophile. We know this. He brought the children into the White House. It was in the newspapers.
Okay, we know that, but we also now have found out that the Brits send their people in to manage the CIA, the DOJ, the FBI, and the State Department. These are the people like Arvinder Sambai and Alison Saunders and Robert Hannigan. Was he managing the CIA or the FBI?
He was Brennan's handler, but he was using the NSA's facilities to spy on Trump without the permission of the person who's in charge of that, Admiral Rogers.
So it's probably not that Brennan asked Hannigan to come over. Hannigan called Brennan and said, "I'm coming over."
Correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Brennan said, "Yes, sir."
Absolutely.
And got the room ready.
Correct.
Okay. All right, let's move on to
Trump's tweet is the news, folks. Until the new Fox comes online and we find out if it's going to be good.
Look, Fox is owned by Murdoch. It ain't going to be any good. It's just going to be another controlled opposition limited hangout. We've got to get away from all of this corporate media.
Fox 21st Century, the one we know as Fox News Now, they're all taking victory laps, right? And it's good because they were, partially there.
The spinoff is still owned by the Murdochs.
And we know that Trump doesn't get his intelligence from them. He posts them because they say what is acceptable. We say what is not acceptable.
Fox News is good for history. They tell you what happened already. They are not investigative reporters going out and doing the real work that journalists used to do.
Right.
Or maybe they didn't. Maybe it's always been a propaganda.
No, they used to do real, absolute
let's move on to the
investigative
next
journalism.
tweet.
Well, the point is people might not understand that Fox News has been bought by Disney. It's going to become Disney Fox News. But Murdoch says he's opening another Fox. And so what we're talking about is whether that one's going to be bad or good or whatever. But the point is, the good news stream is to look at Trump's
right,
tweet.
Because we've even looked at Salem Media, and Salem Media is all filled with globalists at the top. So all these good Christians that are parking their broadcast there with Salem Media, you need to start paying attention because you're going to find out that they're controlling you. It's a limited hangout, and when you're ready to go the full way for full disclosure, they're going to shut you down too. Next tweet. Mexico is doing nothing to help stop the flow of illegal immigrants to our country. They are all talk and no action. Likewise, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador have taken our money for years and do nothing. The Dems don't care. Such bad laws may close the southern border.
This is exactly what we told him to do again, and what we said from the beginning. We are at war with Mexico. Close the border. They will lose so much money every day, billions of dollars over time, that they themselves will start to police their own country. They are a sanctuary country for the attackers from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And Trump has already cut them off by about 50%. Now he needs to cut off those countries by 100% because he needs to declare them enemies of America. And he needs to declare war on the southern border. Tijuana is the most dangerous city in the world. There's more deaths happening in Tijuana. And up and down the border, there are more deaths than in any place on the face of the earth happening right now. Okay? We can't count all the deaths on the southern border. Mexico is not our friend. The current president of Mexico ran on a belligerent platform against America, saying we should invade America, essentially, make money and bring it back across the border illegally. He said that is their right. That is their right as a Mexican citizen to be able to cross the border, make money in America, steal it, don't pay taxes, and come back and do whatever you have to do to get that job. Trump closed the border at one point, and they lost $1.5 billion in a matter of a couple days. He needs to close that border permanently until Mexico cooperates. Right now, Mexico is loading up buses of people. We're seeing more people crossing right now than we've ever seen in history. No matter what the lies out there in mainstream media tell you, we have just what we see is more people. That's not counting the ones who are getting across that we don't see, that we don't literally have film of. And who is delivering them to the border, to the place where there are no walls in buses? By the thousands, that would be Mexico. Mexico is delivering all of their people that they don't want and all the people coming from Central America directly to America and giving them money, giving them food, water, giving them everything they need to penetrate this country. And what happens because of our stupid laws? We have to hold them for a second, write down their names. If they have a child, we then have to release them and tell them to come back for their court date, which won't be for years. This is insanity. We are at war with Mexico. And if you don't realize it, then you're one of those Democrats who support sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, and we have a solution for you. We don't take any of your votes. Since you don't want...
Then why do we continue to send them money?
Well, we've tried to stop sending them federal funds, and there's another new trick that they're using to try to stop this federal funds from going to sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. Sanctuary states and sanctuary cities are where we get the illegal voting going on, folks. So we're not going to accept their votes anymore. We simply say, if you will not comply with federal law that includes immigrations and custom authorities.
And voter ID. We need to have voter ID. Then we will not seat the representatives that your rogue party nominated.
Their votes
voted.
Don't count.
Your votes don't.
We won't seat their people. Let them secede.
Yep.
Let's push them out. Let's not let them secede. Let's push
Thomas,
them out. Okay?
Thomas, we have to keep going.
No, I got to hang on to this for a second. Now, what we really want to do is exactly what Trump has said. Close the border until further notice, but only close it in areas where the wall is up. And what you're going to see is Mexico will crumble. They will build a wall. They will ask for our help, and they will stop accepting help from... Mexico is working with Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. You can't get hardly a worse enemy than Mexico, and they're on our border. And until we recognize that, then everyone who doesn't want a wall is complicit with basically working for the enemy.
FBI and DOJ to review the outrageous Jussie Smollett case in Chicago. It's an embarrassment to our nation.
Yeah, Soros gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to a super PAC that paid Kim Fox. Kim Fox recused herself at first, then said she didn't, intervened in the situation, and gave a sentence without a trial. She said, I'm going to charge you $10,000, consider your previous community service, and I'm going to let you go. So there was no trial, which she wasn't even the judge of, because she had already recused herself. And it's a complete oxymoron. Well, she may go to jail for this. This may be the first time fake justice actually is going to get it turned back on them, and they're not going to be a monarchy controlling us. And we're going to perhaps get some justice because good old Jussie mailed himself some anthrax. That's a federal crime. He ain't getting out of that one.
Well,
and
it wasn't really anthrax.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. The point is that the feds are going to get in on this, and the feds are going to look at this case, and they're going to look at the donations of Soros, and they're going to look at the fact...
You mean the FBI? The FBI? You kidding? The FBI is going to look into... No, that's William what they want.
Barr.
Well, you better...
We got one person.
Okay.
Period. There's nobody in the FBI I trust. Not one single person.
No.
There's not one single person in the Department of Justice that I trust, and not even Bill Barr, because Bill Barr walked the fine line. Mm-hmm. He walked the fine line to sweep it under the rug, which was okay for Trump. But if he does not follow through now on prosecuting the very people who perpetrated this treason, then Bill Barr will be yet another person I don't trust in the Department of Justice. But right now, yes, it comes down to Trump telling Barr.
The next tweet, Congressman Adam Schiff, who spent 2 years knowingly and unlawfully lying and leaking, should be forced to resign from Congress.
That's historic. Yes, a long time ago, things like that would happen. Never in modern history. But then never in modern history have we ever seen anyone lie as much and leak as much as Schiff. Schiffless. Now, let's remember, Schiff got a call from scammers who told him that they could get him the PP video, and he was willing to pay for it. Later, he even traveled to Europe looking for it himself, after he was willing to pay scammers on the phone money to get this PP tape. Now remember, that's bad, but John Brennan paid $100,000 to Sergey Millian to search for it for over a year.
No, John Brennan's saying now that he was just given bad intel.
Yeah, he is bad intel. Okay, so this is absolutely historic. Now, there are many crimes of Schiff, but I just want to point something out. When the liar John Brennan and the crooked Comey and the hobgoblin James Clapper would give the Gang of Eight reports for those 2 years. They were, even before that, they were separate reports, never done before, ever. They call the Gang of Eight together, they give them a report. No, they went to each one of the Gang of Eight and gave them different reports. And Adam Schiff was, of course, part of that. He knew all along the truth. And yet he institutionalized the leaking that allowed the lies to become the main narrative of the mainstream media. And so if there was anyone who was feeding the lies more profusely than Schiff, it would be Comey, and they fed them straight to the mainstream media. So, well, probably to Valerie Jarrett and others, who then wrote the news, gave it to Avid and ISIS management, and then it was read. And so these lies were read so many times by Rachel Madcow that when she had to speak the truth, she couldn't.
Well, it's got to really be bad because, you got Allie Watkins out there. She was that young reporter, and she's having sex with, what was his name, James Wolfe, who was leaking lies to her. She thinks she's getting truth and big stories. And anyway, and James Wolfe, he's getting everything, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the reason he only went to jail for 2 months.
Yeah.
And when he was there, they almost high-fived him to death.
Okay.
Because he pulled off one of the biggest espionage scams and got away with it. 2 months in jail? Please. Is there such thing? And George Papadopoulos, 1 day in jail doesn't account for doing time. Sorry. Now, going on. The Gang of Eight were always lied to. 3 years. Treason. Criminality. And so the intelligence community was also lying to the head of the intel community, the head of the Republicans, the head of the Democrats. And basically, what they were being told was then immediately told to the public. Those were top secret communications. Okay? So what is Schiff going to go down for? Withholding evidence. He says he has evidence.
Show it to us.
He does not have evidence. That is a lie. Now, Nadler says...
Well, if he has evidence, is he not showing it? Isn't that obstruction of justice?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Can we move to the next tweet?
And Jerry Nadler, who says he has a feeling that he's sure that Trump colluded, now says he has seen the evidence. In other words, the evidence in Muller's report, the evidence that was leaked, the evidence that they saw in their committees, the evidence of what the intel community reported to them, all of that means absolutely nothing to Nadler, because he says that he saw that evidence and that that's the proof of collusion. Well, Muller and everybody else says there's no proof of any collusion. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, when the Russians approached the Trump team, repeatedly, they were scorned. Now, he's also going to go down for basically knowingly covering up the crimes of the intel community. He witnessed tampered with Cohen, Strzok, and many others. He was institutionalizing the leaking, and we know this for a fact because he basically literally took committee behind closed-door testimony and revealed it to the public. He has said nothing but lies for the last 3 years, and so he basically he needs to be called before an investigation, put under oath, ask if he said these things, and then when he lies, that will be hundreds of cases of perjury. He also, as I said, released documents. Now, Trump recently sent out a letter to all of the different news agencies, basically saying...
Well, technically it wasn't Trump.
Yes, it was the White House.
Okay.
It was Trump. Trump is warning them he's going to sue them just like Melania sued them and won twice. Why? Because it's personal. They have already gone after things before his presidency. If they were looking for impeachment, that's one thing. But there were no crimes. And so to look for crimes during his presidency was illegal because you can't indict a sitting president. But now they're looking at everything before his presidency. As a private person, he can sue the mainstream media and he can sue these investigations. He sent out a letter, his lawyer sent out a letter, basically warning them. It is a legal warning. You either quit or you will be investigated by the force of the United States government, the federal government, not Trump. Trump doesn't have to spend a dime to get these people for doing what they did to him.
Don't send the FBI. Send somebody who knows how to find crime.
Well, the FBI and the DOJ needs to be completely reconstituted.
Okay. They're just, it's an embarrassment. We got to move on. Wow, ratings for Morning Joe, which were really bad in the first place, just tanked with the release of the Mueller report. Likewise, other shows on MSNBC and CNN have gone down by as much as 50%. Just shows fake news never wins. Hey, You know something else? I'm ready. I want for the DOJ to open up this thing with Joe Scarborough and his intern that was murdered in 2001. Her name is Lori Clausudis. All of the evidence that we see points that Joe is not innocent in this, and we want a full-blown investigation on old Joe.
Absolutely. There was no investigation on Joe, and the facts all point to the reality.
She was murdered.
That was his girlfriend.
His intern.
It was his girlfriend.
Oh.
Not only was it his girlfriend, he had been found out, and she bumped her head on his desk and died.
And then the body is just like, no autopsy,
no investigation,
no nothing.
Nobody was found for a long time. He was in the office when this happened, and then he disappeared the rest of the time. No, Joe Scarborough is a murderer, as far as all the evidence seems to indicate.
But it's like a scene in House of Cards where somebody, he calls up a Pelosi type and says he's in trouble. They send in their crew to take care of the scene, but then they own Joe for the rest of his life. So he has to do their bidding. And that's what he's doing right now on this show he's with his little bride.
Remember.
The Brzezinski.
I'm going there.
Really.
I'm going there next.
Do they really think we're stupid out here? You have a murderer and the daughter of a murderer there?
And he is a politician. And once you commit a crime, then you go on to the news until everybody gets so used to you, you can run again. That's the case with Karl Rove. That's the case with so many people. I can't even name them all. I go blank thinking of all the criminals. Donna Brazil, Clapper, Brennan, Ollie North,
Paul Ryan.
You name it. If you're a criminal, you got caught, you got prosecuted.
You go to the media.
If you're a politician, you get caught, you get prosecuted. Nothing happens to you. Then you go into the media and then you run again. Mika Brzezinski is going to run for office, in case you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Mark my words. Who is her dad?
The memes are just coming out now. I see them.
Zbigniew Brzezinski was one of the worst evil people in human history.
And he
was a Vulcan.
A daughter.
I don't even want to get too far into it.
We won't do that one today. I'm just saying that Morning Joe, guys, this is like the worst TV ever. These two jokesters.
Mika's dad created Al-Qaeda, created Osama bin Laden, created Saddam Hussein, created the American war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. He was a Vulcan. He destroyed and basically fleeced the USSR and then all of the satellite countries. I'm so glad that he has passed and that George H.W. Bush have passed, because they were the two most powerful people in the Vulcans. And so there is no leader now of the rogue CIA. And we are finding that the idiots that they have brought into their camp, like Brennan, they can't do anything. They leave a trail a mile wide. Comey, a trail, 28 crimes of treason that we can charge him with. And literally,
I'm sure there are more.
Without being a lawyer, I could prosecute and win, because the evidence is so clear. I just have to show him the evidence and say, did you do this? Period. That's all there is to it. It's like Hillary. You did this. Not, did you have an intent to do that?
And we don't need an investigation. We've already given the DOJ all the evidence we've collected over a period of 18 years. And citizens have delivered that to Barr. So there's no excuse for these senior executive service attorneys that work at the DOJ not to be able to do their job. If they don't do their job, Thomas, they too are traitors.
Absolutely. And if they don't vote for the wall, they're complicit with all the crimes. They're complicit with the war of Mexico against Americans that they will not recognize. But that's what the Democrats do. They're anarchists. They have now gone far beyond socialism. They've gone far beyond fascism. They are anarchists. Look at the vote of the Green New Deal. Okay? This is who they are, folks. These people, as Nunes just said, they have lost their minds. As Trump said, they are crazy. As we all know, they're in Trump derangement syndrome because they read the prompting of Avid and ISIS management for 3 years, and they came to believe it. And now, because they have brainwashed themselves,
it's cognitive dissonance.
Their brains are exploding.
They can't handle it. All right, last tweet. And remember, as always, if you wanted to read any of these, go into the link in the description box. Very important that OPEC, and that's OPEC, increase the flow of oil. World markets are fragile. Price of oil getting too high. Thank you. And I always have to point that out because we also talk about others. We talk about OPIC, OPIC, which is different.
Henry Kissinger invented OPEC so that he could become an international warlord par excellence numero uno.
Oh, you mean Kissinger and Brzezinski?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And through the Council on Foreign Relations, they controlled America for the entire time, from the time that the Rockefellers set it up. Now, the Council on Foreign Relations always said, believe this or not, and this is in between the lines, and we've said this, and you may find this shocking. Guess who takes most of the oil out of America? The Brits.
Well, they own America.
British
they still
Petroleum.
rule America. I keep trying to say to folks, we did not win the American Revolution the way that our fake history books teach us.
They control our oil, but they also, for instance, they control British Petroleum, Dutch Shell, and many others. But Obama gave them all of our contracts for drilling. Think of that. We haven't even got those contracts back. But if we got them back, offshore drilling, and we could actually stop fracking and still be the leading producer of oil in the world. Now, how did we go from being so far down on the list that we had to beg OPEC, please don't rip us off every summer when you know we use more oil by raising the price by double? Please don't gouge us. Please, on our knees, we were begging OPEC. Now, Trump simply sends them a message. This is the third or fourth time he's done this. The last time he did it, they hesitated for a minute, and so he threatened them, and then they did. So he can simply say to OPEC, lower the price of oil, which shows that these oil-producing countries, we don't have to kowtow to them at all. We never did. If we would stop the Brits from stealing all of our oil, not all of it, a good majority of our oil, and if we would stop, Standard Oil's Seven Sisters, Chevron, Exxon, the whole group, Standard, all of them, from basically taking the money out of this country, paying no taxes, then we would be set up for life. We would have enough oil, and we wouldn't even have to use the oil. Because once we had the oil and we no longer allowed this control of globalists over our country, we could turn to other forms of energy. And I don't mean wind energy. I mean things like solar energy, things like hydrogen energy.
Thorium.
Infinite... all you have to do, take clear water, dirty water, muddy water, salty water. You can put it into your car and run it, even right now.
We're not crazy. This technology is out there.
We've already shown you this. What do we call it? The new
energy
revolution?
Our fiat currency and the Federal Reserve and all of that nonsense is propped up with the fiat petrodollar. So they're not going to let the petroleum industry tank. So until we get real with this and then bring in thorium and we've got to redo our currency, get rid of the Federal Reserve, then that thing will shake out the way it's supposed to be. I mean, glorious, glorious. The way the world could operate is so amazing. We could all live in peace, prosperity, and abundance. But we have to get rid of this evil cabal that's controlling humanity.
The Five Eyes got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, New Zealand just
Queen Elizabeth's got to go.
The
Pope's got to go.
You may think that we are a broken record to keep bringing this back to the Brits and the United Kingdom, but hey, I just told you, look at the statistics. BP and Dutch oil was ripping us off and keeping us in, I think, 10th or even below position of oil producers just a few years ago. So why did we allow that to happen? Why do we allow the Brits to come in and control Lockheed Martin, our number one military contractor?
Because we never won our independence from them.
Anywhere you look, you're going to find the British system infiltrated America, and it is the bureaucratic status quo. It is the establishment. It is the military-industrial complex. It is the globalists. It is the New World Order. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. We've proven it to you hundreds of times with the facts. And so what we're trying to say to you right now is rejoice if you're an American, because the Brits... You've been called out, and your days here in America are numbered.
Okay, and we always like to remind when we get so vicious about the Brits, we're not talking about the patriots in Britain trying to, have their own freedom and liberty and
get away from the European Union.
Right. I mean, but we have to do our part over here in America and take them down over here. If we're ever going to help you, take them down over there.
And people tell you all the time through messages that they are thankful for what we're doing. Same thing in Europe. All throughout Europe, there's no free speech. Sorry, people living in absolute terror. You've invited, your leaders have invited the terrorists into your homes. Okay? And you're so brainwashed that I could not believe this. You know what the new thing the European Union is doing as of the last couple days? Stating that the European Union is prejudiced against African migrants who are raping their women. They have to give them courses to try to teach them not to rape the women in public, okay?
This is supposed to be a closing.
And so I'm just stating, Brits, we love you. Stand up and fight. George Soros put those 10,000 people on the street who came to your house to say you need another vote for Brexit. No, you don't. Get out of the European Union. It's the only thing that's going to save you. And we love you, and we love Europe. Oh my gosh, I love Europe. I've been there more times than I can count. I really have never had a single problem with a single person in Europe. But I won't go there now because I'm not going to be part of having to deal with the invasion, and I'm not going to be brainwashed enough to play like I don't see it going on. So, Trump is the phoenix rising from the ashes. The more, we told you, the more fire they hit him with, the more they burn up. And now you're seeing that everything we've been saying for the last 3 years, in advance of anyone else, we named Peter Strzok before Comey was fired. Okay? We've named all these things because these are the simple paths of perdition, the paths of the 7 deadly sins, and the organizations that are standing behind this are easy to figure out if you simply awaken from your brainwashing and look with the eyes of truth.